Hey friends, it's me, Erin, your friendly neighborhood energy alchemist. And this morning in my live, I was talking about how I'm reading Lue Elizondo's book. This one right here. It's called Eminent and by Lue Elizondo. And if you don't know who Lue Elizondo is, he's basically a whistleblower from the CIA and the government, and he used to deal with UAPs. He resigned because he said the government was doing nothing about it. And then he wrote a book. And now he's given names, dates, times, places, locations, everything for this stuff. And in my live this morning, I asked, do you guys want to hear some of the most interesting things he said so far? And you guys said yes, so I'm going to share it with you. Everything I'm going to read to you is a quote coming out of his book. I'll tell you the page it's on in case you want to see it. And I'm not reading the whole book, but these are some of the most important things that have come out of this so far. On page 15 in his book, he says, I learned that in the mid-1970s, for several years running, people living along the coast of northeastern Brazil noticed strange lights and aircraft that buzzed their small towns and villages at night. The objects ranged in size from baseball-sized orbs to huge aircraft that looked as if they could transport the occupants of an entire city. On page 16, he says researchers estimate that 371 locations across multiple Brazilian states were frequented by these visitations, but the epicenter and the site of the most intense activity from 1977 to 1978 was the small coastal island of Colores, which had a population of about 10,000 people. Page 18. In some cases, witnesses managed to catch a glimpse of their attackers. Descriptions of the occupants of these otherworldly vehicles broke down into two types: beings that appeared to be pale, tall, adult humanoids, and beings with disproportionately large heads and frail bodies about 3 to 4 feet tall. As I would later learn, these two descriptions, the so-called Nordics and Greys, fit the profile of alleged aliens from countless encounters across the world. On page 33, he's talking about different programs within our government that use psychic spies for things. Stargate trained super soldiers to spy on hard targets using their psychic gifts. Psychics once located a Russian supersonic jet that crashed somewhere over Africa. Remote viewers also located Brigadier General James Lee Dozier, who had been kidnapped in Italy by the Red Brigade in 1981. Remote viewers identified and located storage facilities that housed deadly chemical war agents. He's literally saying that the government has been using psychics for years and training people how to do this for years, yet they still deny that they do it. Why? And this is the part that I really, really like. So on page 45, he starts talking about Roswell, and here's a couple things he says. Apparently, when Roswell crashed, 4 deceased non-human bodies were in fact recovered from the 1947 Roswell crash. And did you know they know what caused the crash? The crash they say didn't happen, they know what caused it. According to Elizondo, on page 46, he says, an electromagnetic pulse generated from one of the nearby test ranges had inadvertently intervened with the craft's technology and caused it to crash. That's really interesting. And to say that they know why it happened, but then deny it happened? Interesting. Remember Project Blue Book? So according to Elizondo, that was purposely done to cover up things. And this is what he says on page 52 in his book. A report prepared by Australia's Department of Defense in the 1970s summed up the Blue Book strategy as follows, quote, by erecting a facade of ridicule, the U.S. hoped to ally public alarm, reduce the possibility of the Soviets taking advantage of UAP mass sightings for either psychological or actual warfare purposes, and act as a cover-up for real U.S. programs developing vehicles that emulate UAP performance. Australia is one of the Five Eyes intelligence partners, that is, 5 nations, including the United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States, that have a long history of sharing intelligence cooperatively. We can rely on their frank assessment of the American program. To his credit, Jay Hynek later regretted the role he played in suppressing evidence under the aziz of the U.S. Air Force. He also goes on to say that coincidentally, every time a nuclear reactor has melted down or a catastrophe has occurred, every time, witnesses spotted UAP in the vicinity for days or months after. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima were all UAP magnets. Worried about the Vatican? He's got something to say about that too. Page 58. Elizondo says, most people would be shocked by the amount of intelligence the Vatican has collected over the millennia, culled from eyewitness reports and perhaps even anecdotes shared in the confessional. Catholicism and now even Islam are beginning to prepare the public for the long understood idea that humankind is not alone. Talking about the Tic Tac incident, this is what he says on page 73. For nearly 2 weeks leading up to the incident, the radar operators above the Princeton had regularly logged UAP activity in the air surrounding the vessels, over 100 UAP. The Tic Tac encountered by the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group exhibited propulsive performance characteristics that imply a propulsion system power generation output of 1.1 trillion watts. That is more than 100 times the daily electrical utility power generation in the entire U.S. The entire U.S. The UAP defies the pilot's attempt to get a good lock on it. Second, it has no wings, no air intake, no exhaust plume, no cockpit, no distinguishable control surfaces. Third, it displays no heat or acoustic signature. Fourth, it's flying at hypersonic speeds and able to execute a maneuver almost instantaneously. Whew. He talks about how there's religious fundamentalists in the U.S. government and how they are in a group that helps control the narrative of what gets put out there. He talks about different crashes, places, locations. He talks about all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in the alien or UAP phenomenon, I'm going to tell you, this is the book. And for all those people that tell me he's lying or he has something to gain from this man literally had the highest clearance a civilian could have for the government. He could literally walk into any 3-letter office and use their utilities. You're telling me that this man we trusted with the whole world is making this stuff up for some reason? He lost everything. He has no reason to make this up. And I believe him. Just saying. So check it out.